Yes, thank you, Alexis. Would you like me to begin by calling the roll?
Yes, please.
Great. Vice Chair Amos Kelly,
Present. I wanna go ahead and let you know that I have Alexis Contreras. Yeah, Alex trying to log on right now.
okay. I'll come back and call on her. Ana Gonzalez,
Present.
Amber Novi, Andres Ramirez,
Present.
Michelle Rousey,
Present.
Randy Torres Van Black, Christine Williams,
Here.
all right, thank you. William Walker, we are at quorum.
Thank you. I'm going to take us on to agenda item number 2, tribal acknowledgement. Martha, I don't want to put you on. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Alexis. If you don't mind, I might go through the webinar logistics real quick.
Oh, yes, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Welcome everyone to the July 31st, 2024 Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting. This committee's focus will be on elevating diverse and historically marginalized voices, and will advise the California Transportation Commission, California State Transportation Agency, and California Department of Transportation on how to achieve meaningful outcomes in transportation equity, as well as environmental justice and equitable economic opportunities, especially as related to transportation planning and programming. The meeting agenda is located on the Commission's website at www.catc.ca.gov. Any document created for this committee can be translated into any language you need. Simply email us at transportationeac@dot.ca.gov, and we will have them returned to you as quickly as possible. American Sign Language translation is being provided for this meeting. You should see them on your screen. Spanish translation is also being provided. You can access the service through the interpretation tab at the bottom of the screen. Please use the Q&A tab if you have questions about this. Live closed captioning is also available. Please select the Show Captions tab at the bottom of your screen. There are a number of language options available there to choose from. Presenters, if you are on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. If you are presenting remotely, we hope that you will turn on your camera during your presentation if you have one. Members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as a part of each item at this meeting. You should see the webinar control panel likely located on the bottom of your screen. There you will find the raise hand and Q&A tabs. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature as soon as we reach the item to give the system time to acknowledge you. Committee staff will let you know when it's your turn to make your comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment. Committee staff will read the comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants, as this can create confusion for staff when making comments. Please do your best to be concise. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. We ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute if needed. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm Alexis Lance. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director for the Director's Office of Tribal Equity and Tribal Affairs at Caltrans. My pronouns are she, her. I will begin today's meeting with a tribal acknowledgement. Knowing that we are all virtual today, I welcome the members as well to provide an acknowledgement specific to their areas. As staff are located in the Sacramento region, we are utilizing the California Native American Legislative Caucus land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Nisenan, Southern Maidu Valley, the Plains Miwok, Patwin Wintun, and Wilton Rancheria peoples on the land of which we work on today. Even further, we recognize that all Native American peoples have a deep connection to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community throughout California, our states, and the world. I now open it if there's any members that would like to provide a tribal acknowledgement, you may do so.
Martha Armis Kelly, the Central Valley, that would be the Miwoks and the Yokuts native territories in the Merced, California and Stanislaus area.
And Ana Gonzalez on Tongva Quiche Gabrieleño land.
All right, thank you. I will see if there's any public comment on this item.
Thank you, Amber. At the moment, I do not see any request to comment. Our
Okay,
apologies, Alexis.
that's okay, that's okay. A lot of A names in the meeting.
Right.
I will take us on to agenda item number 3, public comment for items not on the agenda. Clerk, is there any public comment?
Thank you, Alexis. I'll give him a few moments. I'm not seeing any requests at this time.
Okay. So I will take us on to discussion and possible action to elect a subcommittee chair, agenda item number 4. At the upcoming August EAC meeting, there will be on the agenda a report out of the work of this committee. The purpose of that item will be to share with the full EAC what's occurred during the July 1st meeting and today's meeting. And if you all decide to bring the draft letter to the full EAC for consideration, that would be introduced under that agenda item. So this is an opportunity for one of you to take on a leadership role. It can be informal. We don't have to have a vote for a chair. It could just be having someone identifying to be a reporter for the committee to report out at the meeting. We wanted to open this up to you all to identify if one of you would like to serve as the chair or more informally serve as a reporter. If you would like to serve as a chair, then we can take a formal vote, or if someone would just like to volunteer to serve as the person that will report out at the August 22nd meeting, now would be the time to do so. And we're happy to have either approach. We just want to make sure there will be someone from the committee that will speak on behalf of the committee at the upcoming August 22nd meeting.
I'd like to nominate Amber Novi as a chair for this particular committee.
So unfortunately, this is Amber Novi. I would normally take this on, but next week I am going to be at a conference all week long. And so the dates they selected for the meetings, I am not going to be able to be on the calls.
In that case, I would like to go ahead and report, but circle back to nomination of Amber Novi for future engagements. I would be glad to report.
Great. Thank you, Martha. Just want to see if there's anyone else that would be interested in serving in that role. If not, we can move forward with Martha serving as the reporter for this committee. All right, well, thank you. Oh, does someone else want to speak?
I wanted to clarify.
Go ahead,
for
Carolyn.
Amber. Sorry, I wanted to clarify for Amber's benefit that the subcommittee meetings taking place next week are separate subcommittees and not tied to the CAPTI subcommittee. So if Amber, if that's your concern that you're unable to join those meetings, that's a separate, those are separate subcommittees and wouldn't affect your ability to serve as chair of this subcommittee or provide a report back.
Okay.
But again, no, it's up to you.
Thank you for the clarification. I can serve as a chair for this subcommittee then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha. So a nomination has been made and that nominee has consented. let's go forward then with voting. May I ask for a motion to nominate, or excuse me, may I have a second on this on motion to nominate Amber as the committee chair?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
If you don't mind, we will need to do a roll call.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Apologies. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Justin.
All right, thank you so much. Martha Armas Kelly,
Aye.
Alexandra Contreras,
Aye.
Ana Gonzalez,
Aye.
Amber Novi,
Aye.
Andres Ramirez,
Aye.
Michelle Rousey,
Aye.
Randy Torres Van Vleck, Christine Williams,
Aye.
William Walker. All right, the motion passes.
Thank you. So Amber Novi has been elected as the subcommittee chair. Thank you so much, Amber, for stepping up. Staff will continue to support and provide you with everything you need for the upcoming August 22nd EAC meeting.
Thank you.
So with that, I will turn this over to Carolyn for item number 5.
Perfect. Thanks, Alexis. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carolyn Abrams, and I'm a Senior Advisor on Race and Equity for the Director's Office of Equity and Tribal Affairs at Caltrans. And my pronouns are she, they, and I want to kick off tab 4 for this discussion of the subcommittee. And I'll start this by providing a little bit of background and an update on how we reached this point before we dive into the discussion of the draft CAPTI letter. So taking a quick step back, this, just to refresh everyone's memory, is the first update to the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, or CAPTI, since its adoption in July of 2021. So since July of 2021, CalSTA has released 2 annual reports showing the implementation progress of the original actions outlined in CAPTI. There were 34 actions total. So this year, CalSTA will be closing out the original 34 actions in CAPTI and identifying a new set of actions in an update to the plan. This update will focus on committing to a new set of actions to implementing the existing framework and not an update of the framework itself. So then in terms of EAC involvement, as a refresher, CalSTA sought input from the committee members on updates to CAPTI with a focus on the direction that CalSTA will take over the remaining 2.5 years of implementing the plan. And back in April and early May of 2024, several of the EAC members attended the CalSTA listening sessions as part of this update process. And then at our May 15th meeting of the full committee, we had 8 EAC members who self-identified to participate in this ad hoc subcommittee. And the objective of this subcommittee is to provide input on what the updated CAPTI actions should focus on. So that brings us to summer of 2024. So several of you were able to join the first subcommittee meeting on July 1st. The subcommittee met virtually to discuss the update to CAPTI and provide feedback to CalSTA. This first meeting included an overview of CAPTI, which was provided by CalSTA staff, and a discussion amongst the subcommittee members on what should be included and or addressed with the CAPTI update. Based on the subcommittee members' discussion, our interagency staff have drafted a comment letter for the subcommittee members to review and refine. And this draft was circulated to the subcommittee and the full membership of the EAC to edit and revise in advance of today's subcommittee meeting. We haven't received any edits at this point, which brings us to to today's discussion about finalizing the letter. And I want to flag two things that we will cover during this discussion. And Martha, I see your hand. Let me give you this overview really quick, and then I'll turn it over to you. So today's discussion is an opportunity for members of the subcommittee to provide feedback and suggest any edits if they haven't done so already to the letter. And then this subcommittee meeting also offers you all an opportunity to make a motion to bring the letter before the full committee at the August 22nd meeting. And this would mean you are bringing it to the full committee for a possible vote to approve the recommendations put forward by the subcommittee. So I'll pause there. Martha, I see your hand. The floor is yours.
I just want to say for the record, the only reason that I haven't put any comments is because I was with the understanding and acknowledge that we were going to meet at this additional meeting, and that's when those recommendations were going to be brought forward. But I do know that on a personal note, there are several that had the same understanding. In fact, I have Alex Contreras that's on this Zoom and has her input as well in acknowledgement of the fact that we did receive the emails. However, we were pending on this meeting. So thank you.
Not a problem. Yeah. So this meeting is an opportunity for everyone in attendance to provide feedback and have a discussion. We do not have any CALSTA staff on the line intentionally, so that you all feel free to speak amongst yourselves and discuss the content of the letter and what was captured after the first discussion, and see if there are any substantive changes that you all would like to make. So with that, keep in mind that we have an opportunity today if folks want to make changes and also take an action to move the letter forward. We can do either of those things today. And if the committee the subcommittee decides at the end of today's discussion that they are not prepared to bring this letter forward to the full committee, we do not have to do so at this time. So that action can also be tabled. So with that, I want to open up the floor to anyone on the line just to share your thoughts or feedback on the letter, or to provide any other questions to the group that you all think should be discussed. Martha, is that a new hand? If so, the floor is yours.
Okay, no, it's not the new hand, but I'll go ahead and start so we can move on this. So going to the section where we're talking about streamlining the standardization and community engagement, how to ensure reaching groups and cities who have not yet been engaged. Council should analyze which regions, cities, and areas types that have been have had the most direct engagement. I think that they were giving a good understanding of what direction we're going with that. However, we're not really quantifying what amount, because are we talking about rural areas? Are we talking about local jurisdictions, like the cities? What size? I think that we need to be a little more specific if we're looking at seeing who's had outreach and who has not. I think that we need to have some type of a matrix or some kind of outline for that said matrix in looking at who we have had engagement with. And then going down to the last part of the letter, and this is just an overview, to deepen the goals for ensuring equity of access, especially for those living in rural areas. I appreciate that you're putting this in the context of the rural areas, but we do need to specify what groups that are not having access, because in this understanding, we don't include any people that have limited mobility. We're not really putting anything about like people that have any type of needs for special provisions or language or signage. So I think that we need to beef that up a little bit more, or be more intentional about how we're wording it. So thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Anna, go ahead.
Thank you. So I wanted to share the same sentiments as Martha. I know I get really, really worried when it comes to like our rural communities, because in our experience in the Inland Valley region, most of our rural communities have been displaced by highway expansions and road expansions and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we're protecting them and that we're going away from, car dependent infrastructure projects, and instead invest more in public transportation. So thank you, Martha, for those comments. I did want to make a comment about the dedication of resources for personnel to do community engagement. I would hope that because it's very broad right now, so I would hope that you guys have some type of criteria that meets who these folks will be. I'm assuming they're going to be new hires, because I agree that you can add like these activities to existing staff, and I would just hope that the criteria meets some type of language that addresses folks being from those communities that we're trying to engage with, and not have, like, for example, have somebody from like NorCal to engage folks from like LA or the Southern California region, because they won't be able to relate with that community. So I want to make sure that that criteria is specified, although I understand that we're not in the business of creating job descriptions and stuff for y'all staff, but I would encourage you all to look into that to make sure that we're having intentional engagement with community members and staff. So those were my only things. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate it. Martha, did you want to respond?
Yeah, and I wanted to piggyback on the dedicating resources when I see she had a understanding that you're talking about your particular in-house staff, and I'm understanding that we're looking at contracting with nonprofits or community-based organizations to do the engagement. And in that case, I would really want to be very specific on what type of engagement and what type of resources we're offering, because it always goes back to the same thing. When we're doing community engagement, the caveat is always like, how do we have meaningful engagement? We have to have it during the times when people are available for said engagement. We also have to have things like food, some type of incentives, and those are all areas that we still haven't, they're kind of murky waters, because typically in our spaces as far as government, we've not really had that. So how can, understanding that we have to change the matrix or change the idea of how we're doing it, thinking outside of the box and being more meaningful, I think that needs to be included, because otherwise we're just giving lip service to that particular item, and it's not really going to be of any inference or change unless we make something that's different. Because if we're doing things the same way, it's just going to end up with the same result.
Absolutely. Point well taken. Thank you, Martha. Alex, I saw your hand next.
Yes, actually, I do not agree with the second standpoint. I wanted to bring this up with the discussion for the group. I do not recommend contracting with community leaders or community-based organizations. And the reason why I do not agree with this is because it should be, the onus of community outreach should be placed on the state agency. It shouldn't be up to community organizations that already lack the resources and the effort, that already lack resources to expand in wide community engagement. It also puts a lot of pressure on community-based organizations to have technical skills that are required for understanding these transportation projects. These state agencies absolutely should take the burden and the responsibility of doing community outreach. What I would recommend is maybe like not contracting community-based organizations or other groups. What I would recommend instead is that you train state staff in best practices of community outreach, because it also leads to power dynamics within community-based organizations in which there are more established community groups versus newer established, and it also pits community organizations against who's then going to get the funds for this and that. And I firmly believe that the onus should be on the state agencies to do the research and to do the outreach and the necessary. My second comment is around direct funding to community groups working on displacement mitigation strategies. would love to have more. I don't know if we have enough time for this, but I would have to more guidelines on what that could look like and what that should look like. But yeah, that is something that I do not agree with, and I would like to see it removed.
Well, I can make I could agree with that I can meet you halfway with that because I do understand the difference and the fact that that would create a dissonance between the already disenfranchised organizations. However, if we're going to do that, then I would rather have it where we do the community-based organizations are somehow brought in to support the staff in receiving some type of stipend for helping them understand how to have robust engagement, and not have a consulting team that's brought in lieu of having staff do the work. Because I think that takes away from the primary goal of having inclusion and having a better relationship with the said community within the staff that's already working in those corridors.
Yeah, thank you both. Michelle, go ahead and hop in here.
Yeah, I hear both points, and I do have concerns of not including community-based groups in widening your availability to be able to get into the communities and meet people where they are. And I do believe that the state should take the majority of the burden of making the community engagement. But I also think, you know, if those staff need to be trained to be able to do that. And sometimes the community-based services can help with that training. And being able to meet with disability groups and other things, that does not come naturally to a lot of your staff. Unless they've had somebody that they've worked with that has a disability, or they just, it takes training to be able to do that. And I would hope that it's not completely taken out. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
this is
Christine, go.
Oh, go for it. Sorry.
No worries. Well, thanks to staff for getting us started. My comment has to kind of do with timing, and that if we collectively feel like we're not ready to advance this draft today, like in the next 20 minutes, and we want to talk, you know, with the broader committee or revisit this, it was my understanding that CALSA is actually sort of releasing the next draft of actions in September, and that those will also be sort of highlighted in public workshops. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to like right size the timing on this and not necessarily rush something through, but maybe have it fold into a comment letter that is actually reflective of the draft actions that CALSA is going to be putting out in September. And if I am incorrect on that timing, let me know, but that's what I'm showing in my notes. So just a thought that maybe we don't need to be so like time pressured here.
Yeah, thanks for raising that, Christine. Great point. So to affirm what you're saying, yes, CALSA is planning to host public workshops of the draft actions, tentatively scheduled for September of this year. And I believe, so we have our August 22nd meeting of the full committee, and then the next meeting will take place in October. And in order for recommendations to be put forward on behalf of the EAC, it will need a vote by the full committee in order to adopt those recommendations. Hence the motivation to put this forward at the August meeting so that these recommendations could be captured in those public workshops. One caveat is that I believe CALSA intends to invite EAC participation in those workshops. And so I believe there would be an opportunity to capture feedback during those workshops and not in the form of a formal recommendation on behalf of the EAC, but any sort of like resolution, for lack of a better word, or formal recommendation that is backed by the full committee will need a vote first at a committee meeting. And then the other critical timing on this is that in late October, CalSTA plans to release the draft CAPTI action plan. So I believe there will be a public comment period for that once it's released, but I would imagine most of you would like to make sure that your input is captured prior to the draft being released. And then another thing, which Alexis, feel free to chime in on this. We might have a little bit of wiggle room prior to posting materials in advance of the August 22nd meeting. If this meeting alone is not enough time to capture everyone's feedback, and if folks want to submit comments directly to staff on the letter as individuals of this subcommittee. But I think that that deadline is quickly approaching. I just need to pull up a calendar. Martha, go ahead.
In question, I'm sorry. When we have a situation where there's a disagreement on something and it's a soft disagreement, I'm just saying if there's any kind of, dissonance between opinions, how are we going to be able to include that or be able to give it some type of conclusion?
Well, I think I would put that back to the subcommittee members to see if folks can come to an agreement with a little bit more discussion, or if there really is two distinct opinions on a certain matter. Those could be put forward to the full committee for further discussion, and then a vote could be taken based on perhaps there are two versions of this letter, and ultimately it will require a majority vote by the full committee in order to put forward any of the recommendations. So beyond this subcommittee, you'll also need the buy-in from other members of the EAC as well.
Thank you.
Andres, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to jump back on the previous conversation in terms of how we're doing or who's doing the community engagement work. I agree with the hesitation to just hire community-based organizations to do so. Just in the history of how things have worked, it does benefit the bigger organizations who have capacity to even apply to an agency like a CalSTA or Caltrans. However, something that I think we do need to take into account is the regional approaches for community engagements. That's very important, right? So even if it's something that's housed within the agencies, I think regional familiarity is going to be important, right? Folks should know how to engage folks in the area, because it's very different how you approach folks in the Bay as opposed to how you reach out folks in Imperial Valley, for example, or San Joaquin Valley. And so, I think that's an important nuance we have to include in this recommendation, right? I like the idea of the training coming from organizations that are based in this work, because I do think it's not sustainable to indefinitely just have community-based organizations do this work, right? It should be something that does, and it's part of here, right? Having the training and ability and specifically the funding for agencies to do this, right? But I do think it also brings up the need for like local hire, for example, to do this kind of work. So I just wanted to chime in that way.
Thank you, Andres. I appreciate that input. Alex, go ahead.
I had a question. And when it comes to community outreach, the California like the California Transportation Commission, they have districts as well. Like there's various districts, and when people are in charge of managing those projects, are those people who typically live, work in the area? I guess that will help better inform my opinion on the community engagement aspect.
Yeah, good question. So the state transportation, well, sorry, let me back up. The Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation, falls under the umbrella of the State Transportation Agency. Caltrans has districts, and generally speaking, I think most of the staff that work for the districts kind of live in those communities. It's not always across the board that that's the case. You might have folks who have some, you know, hybrid positions or were hired remotely during the pandemic. But for the most part, I think we largely have representation from the folks who are kind of living in those regions who are working for the district. There's a lot of variation within that. Some districts are huge, of course, and so you'll have folks from, particular communities within the district that perhaps are not familiar with another community, just given the size. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Thank you. That definitely helps with some more feedback I have on that point. I think it would be more useful for long-term systems change to still have staff be in charge of community engagement. But with this decision that we do have, with this knowledge that we do have now, we can make better recommendations, such as recommending that community staff is hired and operates within the district that they work in, and that they partner with community orgs that are within the district that they work in to better facilitate outreach. I still think I'm looking at this from a systems change approach, so I still believe that we should have the onus be on staff to do the outreach. But in that case, we can make recommendations such as staff works on the project, community outreach. If you're going to be in charge of community outreach, you have to be residing in the district that you're in. So that way we can get more specific hires for community outreach. I think this is a good, for me, I'm looking at this as system change. There should be specific hires for the specific districts probably. So that way they're very familiar with the area. They know what organizations that might be out there. It would be easier to pull organizations in if they haven't been pulled in yet. But yeah, that's where my mind is sort of going. And I would like to pull this up for discussion.
Yeah, any thoughts from the group on that? Thank you, Alex. And Andres, sorry, I see your hand, but I'm not sure, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Sorry, it's from the previous.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Andres. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, I like that. I like that we hire people who are within the area that the projects are, whatever district that may be, and then do the community outreach from there. And I do think that some of the community groups should be compensated, though, if they are participating fully in that participation. And I don't know, but I do like your idea of getting the people to do the work from the agency and locally, so that trickles down. So
thanks, Michelle. Shauna, go ahead. Shauna, if you're speaking, you are muted.
Oh, sorry, I thought you called on Michelle. So I wanted to share an experience that I had recently with Caltrans, and Carolyn can, chime in on this. And I really like the way we worked it out, where, Carolyn did the outreach and made all the logistics possible happen. And our organization was contracted through a stipend and some gift cards that we were giving to the community members if they participated. And so it wasn't such a heavy lift for our organization that has very, very little capacity to do administrative work around these things. So I really enjoyed that experience with Caltrans. And we were able to get a lot of people engaged in these conversations, folks that didn't even know who Caltrans was or why they existed. And so to the point about really investing into personnel that really, does the logistics and the back end work and just collaborates with in partnering with the CBOs, I feel it has been the best experience for us as a CBO, but also other nonprofit groups that I've worked with. They really rather just help, with the collaboration and bringing folks to the table and then having staff do the rest. Because it is a very, very heavy lift for organizations that don't have much capacity like ours. And I mean, there's nonprofits that do have a lot of capacity. They have millions of dollars and they can have the administrative staff to handle the back end work. But I just I wanted to like give an example and emphasize that those experiences with Caltrans have worked the best for us as a nonprofit. And hopefully you all take that, into consideration of why myself as a member right now in this conversation is advocating more that the funding goes directly for staff from that community. And that's why I want to emphasize that these folks come from that community that they're planning to serve. And then just doing that collaboration with nonprofits at a very limited capacity for them, because it is a lot of hard work and some of our nonprofits don't have that capacity. So I wanted to provide that example.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I appreciate you sharing that as well. And I would be happy to send folks, if it's helpful for the subcommittee, a bit more detail on the sort of administrative side of how we went through that, so folks could see the framework that we use, and if it's a useful thing that you all would like to encourage CALSTA to replicate. Amber, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Hi, is there a way to include the zip codes for the area that it's specifying, so that if you're looking for local hire, you can say within, these 3 or 5 zip codes for the area? We do that a lot for construction work to make sure that all the companies aren't coming in and bringing the workforce in, but there's local hire within the community, a certain percentage.
And Amber, just to clarify, are you referring to job postings specifically for staff who would be conducting community engagement?
Yeah, I mean, if the concern is that there's not local hire, then can you put in language to specify the area that is local hire, if the zip code within the area, so that you're reaching out to the local community people for those roles?
Yeah, I think that's something that we could check in with HR about to see if we're allowed to just offer that as like a preference. I don't know if we'd be able to put that forward as a requirement necessarily based on the job description, but I do like that idea of trying to narrow it down, since these districts cover a wide range of zip codes.
Yeah.
Michelle, I believe your hand was up next, and then Martha. Oh, Michelle, you are muted.
Sorry, guys. I agree that there's a lot of different zip codes in different districts, depending on the size of the districts. So that will need to be taken into consideration. I liked Anna's suggestion and her giving some examples. I think if we could get more information about how that went down, and I think we should move forward with getting more recommendations from the committee. I don't know if we're ready today to make a full recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Martha, go ahead.
So I just want to refer back to the original email that you had sent out to us in regards to becoming vetted as a CBO for your particular list for that type of contracting. Wouldn't that be something where you would be able to like Just like they have in the ATP, they have small, medium, and large grants, or small, medium, and large stipends available. And you would be able to quantify those organizations by small capacity, larger capacity, mid capacity, and then open it up to different entities depending on the size of the job. So if they're better suited to be able to comply or be able to support that work, that they would be considered. If it's a smaller group and you're looking at a small region and they fall in that category, they would have first consideration. That way it's kind of opening it up for other groups that normally wouldn't be considered for any type of stipending. Tier, exactly. I think that's how you guys do it with ATP, and I'm thinking that same version would be able to be applied to that list, that master list that you had put out. Do you know which list I'm talking about?
Yeah, thank you, Martha. I'm forgetting the actual name of it. Alexis, do you have it on hand? I know what you're referring to, Martha, but it's basically we're trying to get local CBOs and other advocacy groups into our contracting system and having sort of a main list that we can pull from rather than just your standard consultants and folks that typically contract with state agencies.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that like there should be some kind of language around those folks that get vetted that they can actually show, because that they are a CBO one, that they are actively engaged. So it's not just somebody that decides to get a 501c3 like the next day to get that money, but that have actually showed some kind of history in community organizing, that they have some type of investment in the community. They've given back to the community in a way, so that you could actually say, oh, they are aware of their community. They put a narratives together about the needs assessments, and they are spot on with that community. Because then you're gonna get folks like Alex said, that just have the money and say, oh, that sounds like good money, and they apply, and they're not even doing work in that area, or they're not even acquainted with said communities. So, just like in the RFPs, they said, they asked that they have already established relationship with said communities. So I think that there's some things that could be added onto that to ensure that we would have an equitable representation in said parties that are wanting to apply or would be considered for such monies.
Yeah, great point, Martha. Thank you. I think we can explore that further and with the list and the contracting, but we can see maybe how we can capture some of those comments in this letter, if that also makes sense. So we are at 3 o'clock, and in order to make any sort of motion, we do need to have a quorum of members in attendance, and I anticipate that some folks will start to need to drop off this call, and that's totally fine if folks need to go. So what I'm hearing so far is that folks do not feel like we are ready to take an action today to put these recommendations forward, but perhaps what we can do is staff have captured the feedback from today's discussion. We can send that out to the subcommittee review and see if we have accurately captured your feedback. And if there's anything missing, folks can offer additional suggestions via email to us. And then we can make an attempt at revising the letter once again. I believe Monday is when we would need to submit the draft letter for remediation so that we have time to post it in time by August 9th in advance of the August 22nd meeting. But I don't think we would, we are not in a position where we would be able to reconvene this subcommittee prior to then because we don't have a 10-day window. So there's that to keep in mind. Alexis, any other considerations on that? I think our window is pretty short for the turnaround on this if folks did want to bring it to the August meeting.
Yeah, I think we may have a little bit more. Yeah, I think if this was to be an item to be voted on, we definitely need to have something publishable by the 9th But I think if we're just bringing it for information purposes, we can have drafts available to share that come after the 9th. They just need to be available before the meeting, and we would just need time for remediation, if I'm correct
Well,
on that
I
one.
motion that we move this discussion, I guess, onto the next, because we have not clearly been able to close on all of the items.
Sorry, Martha, can you say that again?
So I motion that we continue this discussion and follow that recommendation for the letter to be brought forward to the whole body, the EAC body, upon revision on your part.
I second that.
Okay, sorry, to clarify the motion that's at hand, Martha, you have moved to incorporate the edits based on the subcommittee members' comments today, send that letter out for review with the agreement that the subcommittee will put this forward for a vote at the August 22nd meeting. Did I capture that correctly?
Yes, as long as it's brought up to the whole body. Yes, the EAC.
Okay, and Michelle, I believe you seconded that motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that is the motion on the floor. I believe we need to do a roll call vote if we want to make this motion. Justin, can I turn it over to you to do so?
Yes, absolutely. All right, I will now call the roll for this vote. Martha Armas Kelly,
I agree.
Alexandria Contreras,
Yes.
Ana Gonzalez,
Yes.
Amber Novi,
Yes.
Andres Ramirez,
Yes.
Michelle Rousey,
Yes.
Randy Torres Van Black, Christine Williams, oh, looks like she's no longer on. William Walker. The motion passes.
Perfect, thank you, Justin. Is there any public comment on this item before we close?
I am not seeing any requests to comment on this item at this time.
Perfect, thanks, Justin. So quickly to recap, we as staff will take the comments that we've heard from the subcommittee members today, incorporate that into the letter, and recirculate it for the subcommittee's review. That letter will then be remediated and posted with the meeting materials in advance of the August 22nd meeting. And at the August 22nd meeting, the subcommittee will put this forward for a vote by the full committee to adopt the recommendations that are captured in the letter. And I also want to add, just for everyone's benefit, that regardless of a formal letter being put forward to CALSTA, the comments that have been captured in the subcommittee discussions and the full committee discussions will be captured in their comments that they are taking through their outreach process to update CAPTI. So if a full vote is not approved at the August 22nd meeting, these comments will still be captured in that process. There just won't be a formal recommendation put forward by the EAC.
Thank you.
No problem. So with that, we will be in touch with you all very soon, and I will adjourn this meeting at 3:06.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Carlos Diaz, our Spanish interpreter, I wonder if you have a moment, if you're still here. Oh, I am at the moment, actually. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's helpful. You know, it's funny. We just started a new contract with Translang. Previously contracted with another company for the previous 2 or 3 years, and we haven't had a lot of requests for Spanish interpretation, but we've had it at almost every meeting now. We've had a few requests, but not too many. And so I didn't really have a good grasp of like the logistics or how best to facilitate. So that's helpful to me. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. So if so if we had a Spanish speaker providing a comment in Spanish right now, and we have other Spanish speaking attendees, as that Spanish comment is being, spoken, you're saying the Spanish speakers hear it in Spanish on the Spanish channel, but you're interpreting at the same time in real time in English to the English speakers. Wow. That okay. That's that's awesome. Okay, I've never really had it presented to me like that, but the onus is on you to be able to like understand, switch, and do all that. Yeah. Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. Yeah, we just switched to Zoom for this reason just about like 2 years ago. Yeah, we were using another platform that didn't have the same feature, but there's been increased requests because we've had an occasional request for Spanish interpretation, but then it just became, department wide that we should have it available, for all meetings. We do ASL for all meetings, but Spanish is right now we're doing it the virtual Spanish for most meetings, but then we might switch it to upon request. We're still kind of internally debating that. But anyways, yeah, that's all very helpful. So I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, cause I was, yeah, interesting. Um, one of your reps, do you have, I don't know if I'm taking up too much of your time, if you have like 2 more minutes. Your administrative rep, Andrew, I think his name, was telling me about the setup where you guys have, instead of, because we had 2 virtual interpreters and we had 2 in person. Um, at a recent meeting, but he was kind of talking about the challenges with that, first finding 4 qualified interpreters, And then he talked about the system you guys set up where you have 2 laptops in person, connected to 2 transmitters. And so, that's amazing. Yeah, I just had a call with him, I think yesterday, he kind of gave me kind of the lowdown on that. But like, I know, he talked about, your guys' cost for travel, and then obviously we're paying for that cost, and we're just trying to see, the advantage and what would be the best way to go. And so I actually, yesterday presented to my supervisors that approach of having the 2 laptops with, and then we get the transmitter set up and connect them, and that way you can easily route from English to Spanish. Okay, that's awesome. Mhm. Okay, and that setup, like if you're either a Spanish only speaker or an English only speaker, would you only need one headset to listen to, like just that interpretation in your native language? Yeah. So if like English is on channel 1 and Spanish is on channel 2, so we've got English speaking, staff who want to listen. They would only need to listen. They would only need the one headset just in the event that a Spanish comment comes in, and then they can just get that interpretation. And then if we have Spanish speakers in person in the audience, they would only need the one headset just to get your interpretation from English to Spanish. Okay, all right. I appreciate the time. Yeah, okay, that's great. And yeah, so like I said, generally speaking, we've had these here as, just as a general practice, but we're kind of debating what would be the best way to go. So this is all very helpful to me. Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, take care.